Alright, what's going on, guys? UFC Emmett versus Murphy was last night. Now, normally when I do these tier list videos, I rank all the fights from fight of the night down to the worst thing of the night. Usually I have some pun at the bottom. This time it's WTF did I just watch? And I want to explain I only have 4 fights broken down, and obviously I have UFC Fight Night here. So let's just get this out of the way right now. These were the 4 finishes on the card. Reese McKee versus Frunza. Actually an awesome performance. He had 4 knockdowns, and then the doctor stoppage was a little disappointing, but his lip was split completely open. Reese McKee finally gets a win in the UFC after facing some really hard competition. Happy for him. It was a highlight of the card. Barbosa, the immediate next fight, she did get a finish. She got a submission. I think she had a hand-arm triangle, and you know, it was still good. It kept a little bit of momentum rolling on this card that didn't feature very much. Ode Osborne had a TKO. He absolutely dropped Garula, and this was also very exciting. Ode Osborne is someone who gets counted out a lot, and it was cool to see a big underdog win and upset and a finish again. And then Lee got the ground and pound finish as well. This fight was pretty lopsided, but for this card, I'm having the 4 finishes of Fight of the Night. These were the 4 standouts, and I have UFC Fight Night here, and I'm putting this entire thing in WTF that I just watched. And honestly, this is probably one of the worst cards that I have watched. That's just how it is. It's one of the worst cards I've watched. It's one of the worst cards of the year, and I'm noticing a pattern. This year has been very weak for the talent head to toe on UFC cards. I don't know, a lot of fighters are choosing to just sit out. A lot of fan favorites getting beaten this year. The reffing this year has been questionable. There's so many point fouls and cheating going on in a lot of the fights. It took place in the main event tonight. There was about 4 different fouls. No point was taken. Stalling and just clinch holding, it's being promoted, it's being rewarded. The judging has been absolutely abysmal this year, and we need to see a change in the UFC. This product is, you know, it's the reason I started this channel, was because I love the UFC. I love combat sports. I love mixed martial arts. I love the art of fighting, and we have been watching it on the laziest and just lowest quality scale this whole year so far. From what they put out for pay-per-views to the sad excuses for fight nights that they're putting out. And no shade towards these fighters. Obviously, we have fighters who won here and got finishes. But for every other fight on the entire card to be a decision, with most of them having not a single highlight moment or wobble or stun or submission attempt or, you know, fan favorite Torres Finney 3-time Dana White Contender Series winner came in, and then he held a guy against the cage for 3 rounds, and he only had 4 significant strikes in the entire fight. And Finney was a guy I wanted to win before the fight started, but after the fight, you have to think, like, okay, how many times can you get separated before something has to happen? How many, and even in that fight, you know, the ref, or the judge rather, one of the judges gave it 30-27 to the opponent of Finney, and that's a scorecard I completely disagree with. I think that it's wrong. It doesn't show the fight that we just watched, but that was also him saying, look, I'm giving it to the damage, even though there was very few. So basically my point is something has to change. The product is getting watered down. It's been hard to watch. These Apex cards are so lazy. They're so sloppy. I mean, the Manel Kopp versus Almabayev card, the Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze rematch card, and something else that's happening every week is they're just pullouts every single week. I know that the Martin Buday fight, he was versing a guy on short notice who stepped in from light heavyweight. Martin Buday had a 60-pound advantage over this guy and still chose to just stall and hold against the cage after losing almost every interaction that they had on the feet. It's inexcusable. It's horrible. You have fighters getting booed so loud in the Apex it sounds like they're in an arena. Fighters like Lerone Murphy, who's this undefeated prospect at featherweight, who runs away on the back foot for 25 straight minutes, and they're giving him rounds where he's barely edging out rounds on just outside low kicks and body kicks where he's just trying to keep distance and keep Emmett away, where Emmett's chasing him down the whole fight, trying to push the pace the whole fight, getting takedowns, landing in takedowns. Like, he landed more takedowns in this fight than he landed in like the last 5 years combined, or something crazy like that. Emmett was trying to push the pace, Emmett was trying to go for the finish, and then we have fighters like Lerone Murphy when they get their hand raised, in a 48-47 decision, where he's saying it was a masterclass. He's saying that, he wants all the big fights coming up. He wants guys in the top 3. He wants to get the title shot. And it's like, dude, you just ran from 40-year-old 16-month layoff Josh Emmett for 25 minutes. Had one of the most boring main events I can think of, which is hard to do. Like, Josh Emmett usually brings it. Josh Emmett went to war with Ilia Topuria. It might have been one-sided, but he still went in there for 25 minutes and had an insane fight with Ilia Topuria. Lerone Murphy just running away scared. I know you don't want to end up on the same side of a highlight like Bryce Mitchell, but it's the attitude of these fighters as well, right? They, before the fights and the interviews, they're talking like, I want to be the type of fighter that gets crazy highlights. I want to fight for the title. And then they put on performances that puts people to sleep. Everything I've seen online has been just abysmal talking about this card. It's truly, like, this card is a viewing experience, spending hours of your day, sitting down from mid-afternoon till nighttime to watch a card. You're spending 6 hours watching a card, and there's only 4 finishes on the entire card. And finishes aren't everything. Decisions it's the quality of fights. Every fight that went to decision, besides maybe 1 or 2, had me so completely bored and just disinterested. And that's not what I want from this product. That's not what I want from the UFC. That's not what I want from combat sports. I do this because I love the sport. And this year and even last year, since COVID, we've had a couple of good years. I think 2021, 2023 were very good and exciting. And last year we started to see a shift where Dana was making matchups that make no sense. And he's booking fights based purely on what he calls legacy fights, and just inexcusable matchmaking and just poor excuses for these fight nights. And this year is no different, and it's frustrating. And like I said, it's just unacceptable. So this is what you guys get for a tier list. I'm sorry if you wanted a more in-depth breakdown of the actual fights, but this is just how I feel. Would you have really wanted me to sit here and be like, oh, this fight, included cage stalling and clinch stalling against the cage, and it went to decision, and the boring blob fighter got the nod even though he didn't do anything and weighed in overweight. Okay, yeah, D tier. Or, lowest tier is supposed to be reserved for the worst fight. Every single other fight was terrible. And, even the Brad Tavares versus Gerard Mearshart fight, I think that first round was a little bit exciting, which is, the bar's not very high. And even that fight fizzled out by the third, with Gerard literally holding on for dear life and having to get separated. And I don't think I've seen as many separations in the last year combined as I have on this one card. The amount of times where a fighter got separated. Torres Finney got separated like 3 or 4 times. It's just ridiculous. There needs to be set rules in place. There needs to be punishments for fouls. Lerone Murphy, eye poke, headbutt. Your headbutt did all the damage. You headbutted, you did an eye poke, you're fouling, you're elbowing to the back of the head, you're getting multiple warnings. In between round, you're getting warnings. You're getting warnings about your warnings. You're saying, okay, I've given you a warning. If it happens again, I'm taking points. Just take the point. That fight could have been a draw, or even Emmett's fight if the fouls were actually punished. And it's just resulting in a worse product. And I know that we have 314 to look forward to, and I know that the narrative's going to change, and the videos are going to be hopeful and exciting, and it's going to be hype, and it's going to be, what we want from the product, but it's not okay that it's so far and few between. So, every 2 months we get one card that's so, unbelievably stacked that we're super excited for it, and then in between is just this slop, this crap. The best performance of the entire night, Ode Osborne, and again, no shade. I was actually cheering for these guys, Ode Osborne and Reese McKee. I'm like, yeah, let's see these underdogs win. But we had a guy who was 0-4 in the UFC, and a guy whose record was like 13-8, going out there and getting the 2 best performances the entire night on the card, where you're a huge company. You have 15 ranked fighters in every division. There's a handful of divisions. And there's only one ranked fight on the entire card, and it ends in the most boring fashion imaginable in the main event. I don't want to give any more effort into negativity, into talking about this just poor product. And if it wasn't for having the YouTube channel and having something that I wanted to talk about each week and engage with on the social media platform, I probably wouldn't be engaging with the product as much as I am. And I know a lot of people probably feel the same way. I don't want to go on for so long just repeating myself, but it's just something had to be said. And obviously I did still want to highlight the winners who won in a finish in exciting fashion. Let me know what you guys thought about Emmett versus Murphy. Was it one of the worst cards that you've ever seen? I know it was one for me. It was terrible. I am looking forward to 314. I want to move on from this and look at the positive. Don't just dwell on the negativity surrounding the UFC right now. But it's just, this week was just a bad week for UFC fans. Surrounding the announcements of Barab versus Sean 2 and Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison, to this, it's just clear that Dana is out of touch and the matchmakers just don't care. They must just not care about their jobs very much, or they're just, something's going on behind the scenes where those guys don't actually aware of what the fans want to see. So anyways, let me know if you guys are hyped for UFC 314. I want to look towards the positive and hopefully have an amazing pay-per-view next week. I can't wait to talk about that card and watch that card and just wash the taste of shit from my mouth of the last month or so of UFC. And yeah, I'll see you guys.